the healthcare inflation in India is very high, right? Which is around 15%, and your general inflation is around 6 to 7%. What are other benefits that you should definitely consider, and what are the top companies giving? All of that I tried to compile in a very, layman language. Top 25% of companies are offering upwards of 5 lakhs. So you should know where you're standing, right? If you get started with at least employees, spouse, kids, and parents, it puts you in one of the best employers in the country. You should do that. Starting from as low as 3,000 rupees per employee, and then you can go as high as 40,000 rupees. In 40,000 rupees, you have the best of the best coverages that you can offer.
Yeah, hi Sanchit, welcome back to the show. So happy to be doing this again.
Thank you for inviting me again. Thankful to you.
Yeah, so Sanchit, we were talking, and the guide that you guys have Pazcare has come up with, right? It's an amazing guide, and I'll tell you what clicked for me. By the way, for folks listening, this is a guide on first-time buyers for corporate health insurance. And what really clicked for me, because I could just immediately relate back to 3 years back when I was given the duty of bringing in corporate health insurance at my company. I had no clue. I was Googling. I figured it out eventually, but it was a lot of effort, a lot of time suck. And this guide is something that's amazing that I could just read and sort of half the time. And also the nuances are covered amazingly in this guide, right? And that's what I thought, it'll be amazing for you to come on and just make this as a masterclass for everyone listening in. Anyone who's interested in bringing in health insurance, Chit will take us through the whole process. So that's a bit of the context. But before we start, I'm very curious, what was your eye behind making this very helpful doc?
Yeah, I think just as I mentioned that I have written it personally. So most of the part of it, I mean, of course, my team had edited it. The idea behind that was when I entered into this space of employee benefits. Before this, I used to run an events platform. And at that time, when I perceived about like insurance and benefits products, I personally used to feel that something alienated terms and used to be scared about that, hey, how should we go about it? Let me hire some agent for all of that. So, but when we entered into this space, right? So the idea was to learn and simplify. So I thought, like, let's demystify, let's make it very accessible. And I know the challenges that you face as a when you're buying it for the first time. One is, what kind of benefit should I give? What should be my budget? Many of the times I've seen people overspending also, not only underspending, but actually overspending. Many of the times we have seen people actually going for the terms and conditions which are not suitable for them. So they end up having some clauses which should not be there ideally. And then when they have claim, they get surprised about it, and then they feel bad about it. Why did this clause is in the policy, right? Then also about the benchmarks, right? So I think what kind of company I am running and what kind of benefits my similar good quality companies are offering. So the whole thought process we have been able to decode, right? So I thought, like, why don't I just document it in detail so that anyone who's planning to go for it for the first time, they don't make those mistakes of like going for the wrong terms and conditions, or actually, overspending or wrongly budgeting it. So that's why we have written a lot on that in the cost, and also so what's the trend in the market, right? So you have a lot of people now giving OPD benefits. What are other benefits that you should definitely consider? And what about life insurance or accidental cover as well? And what are the top companies giving? All of that I tried to compile all of that in like 10 to 15, whatever the number of pages are, in a very, layman language, as a goodwill for all our industry people. That was the reason.
Yeah, amazing. It's useful. It's super useful. I'm glad that someone's doing it. And for folks listening, and I'll leave a link to the doc below. But Sanchit, again, just taking a step back before we get into the doc, right? Again, I want to address my audience, HR, young kid, right? Has heard of employee health insurance, but is a little confused on why is it important, right? So the question is that why is health insurance important? What is the benefit if I take it for my people?
Yeah. So see that I think the most important thing which I would like to highlight here is that the healthcare inflation in India is very high, right? Which is around 15%, and your general inflation is around 6 to 7%, right? So as an employee, right, many of the times we don't have those kind of insurances which we should have. And our previous generation, which is our parents, they mixed the insurance, buying insurance. Many of them missed because it was not very, very common to buy insurance when they were young. And now the problem that they're facing is that they're not able to buy. When they grow old, they have some pre-existing coverages, diseases, which generally insurance companies are hesitant to give them. So what group as a benefit does to the employee is that it covers up the whole, the financial risk that is there for due to any hospitalization that probably might happen for any employee or his or her family member. And it doesn't, when it goes in the form of a group, it doesn't cost a lot also, which definitely I would love to cover with you again, but it doesn't cost a lot to the company. You spend a lot of money on their salaries, which is around 2 to 5% of that can go in insurance as a benefit. So this is the trend that we have seen in mature economies like US, where we are not covered by the state. Similarly, in India, white collar workers are not covered by the state. So it becomes very critical for an employer to sort of provide these benefits to the employee. That is like the core fundamental cause. And now the thing is that it has become like a pattern also, right? So you want to be competitive as an HR or as an employer in the market, right? So you want a high quality talent joining you, right? From like a larger company to you, and the larger companies are giving like a bouquet of benefits. So the employee will have reluctancy to join you if you're not providing a good cover. So they're asking for it. So it becomes very critical from that perspective, the competitive edge perspective. Plus at the same time, so probably after salary, I think I personally feel it is the most critical benefit that an employer can actually offer to the employee. My point of view here is okay to deduct from their salary also, but give them. You know what I'm trying to say? So, but just give them that accessibility of that benefit, because majority of us don't have the cover right now in India. And in case any claim comes, it wipes out the whole, family savings.
Cool. Let's just go dive into the guide, Sanchit. I'll just share, and then I can just keep asking you some questions. So we've covered the why, right? Why do you want insurance? Why is it important? Just give me a second. Yeah, I think the important one after this is budget.
Yeah.
What are the budgets that I should be looking at?
Yeah. So, I mean, starting from as low as 3,000 rupees per employee, if you want to spend as an employer, right? And then you can go as high as 40,000 rupees. But in 40,000 rupees, you have the best of the best coverages that you can offer to your um, employees, right? So in a good case scenario, if you're buying for the first time, you can keep a budget of around 10,000 rupees per employee, which will give you somewhere, empty spouse and child policy, right? And if you go beyond that, and if you want to cover parents, it can go as high as around 20,000 to 25,000. Plus the good, like very, very, very employee friendly company have a higher budget. Their budget goes up to like 40,000, where they have plans like OPD, which can cost them like 4 to 5K per employee based on the kind of coverage that they're providing. And on life insurance per employee, on an average can go, somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000 rupees based on the salaries or based on the flat cover that the employer is providing. Mota, if you see, if you're providing multiple benefits, it can go, and with including parents. First of all, on group health insurance only, if you see, a good cover will definitely come in like 25,000 rupees with parents, right? If you're providing somewhere around 3 lakhs, we'll cover. I think that we have created a detailed chart also in the next few slides. I mean, if you're very frugal, you don't have a lot of budget, but you have an intent. What you can do is you can start from as small as 3,000 rupees also, and you can just cover your employee. So you have like varied cost structure based on, the budget that you as an employer have per employee.
Got it. So this was step one. Like step one of everything, just plan your budget. This is what I have. Then Sanchit said, basis what is the capacity and the fiscal capacity that you have, that you move ahead deciding what's next. Okay. So the next part, so I've got my budget, I've got a ballpark, I've gone to the founders, I've taken those approvals, and now I come step by step, right? What are the factors that I keep in mind while I'm taking an insurance? You mentioned size of the group. What does that mean? Why is that relevant?
Yeah. So see, once you're group size becomes larger, so of course you get more possibility of course, like more people, the better. Like your larger group is a stable group from insurance perspective, but the minimum size of the group required is around 7 members is what you need to start a group. Yeah.
Yeah. So hold on. So size of the group means that's the coverage, the employees that I have in the company,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and does it mean that if I have a smaller group, smaller base, my costs will go up for the same services?
So there are providers who have cracked this model, right? I think I'll do some plug of Pazcare here that we have been able to work around with insurance companies where to enable small and mid-sized companies to have, good kind of premiums as well, which are not overly priced. For example, if you're a 1,000 employee company and if you're a 100 employee company, then the price difference is like almost 2x. It won't be like that. It will be almost similar for the same terms and conditions.
Understood. Got it. And the next one, type of industry, again, does it differ? If you're in another industry, it's higher, lower?
Yeah. So see, I think in type of industry, so the most critical, why we mention it is you should know, uh, like what kind of employees you have, right? So if, say, for example, do you have a blue collar workforce or you have a white collar workforce? So it definitely, it's from the perspective of benchmarking. So it's critical to, uh, the different segments have their different needs is what I wanted to mention. And
Got it.
and the costs are like the kind of hospital somebody might be more expensive if they are in some segment of employees, right? So for example, if they're having a maternity, right, so they might go in a very expensive hospital or a presidential suite kind of this thing. And then if you have some other segment of employees, then they might go for a relatively cheaper segment. Also, it depends on if your employees are covered in like state insurance as well. All of these factors included. So state insurance is for blue collar workers, by the way, right? It's compulsory by the government of India.
Yeah,
So
ESIC, I think less than 15K or something like that. You have to take that.
Yes, ESIC. Yeah. So, so the critical thing to understand is what your peers are offering, right? So if you're in a consulting firm, very people centric, so you need to at least benchmark yourself. So that's the critical part. You can't be like, hey, the kind of companies my peers are, they are offering like a 40,000 rupees of budget here, and I spend 10,000. It will be very hard to get those employees joining you otherwise.
Understood. And one more follow-up question to this. So within one company, let's say I have a set of blue collared and a set of corporate white collared, I can actually go for two different sort of packages, two different covers.
Yes. You can have graded covers as well. So for example, generally from a very smaller group perspective, sometimes there's a little bit of resistance. In smaller groups, generally the request from the insurance companies is to have a flat cover for group health insurance specifically. But you have the flexibility to, if you have like 50 plus or 100 plus employees, you have the flexibility to, like, some segment of employees can have like a higher cover and some segment of the employees can have a different cover.
And age, I guess, is self-explanatory. Like the more older you are, the more the cover and the more the cost. And what is copay, Sanchit?
So copay is when you're going for a claim, right? Say for example, the claimed amount is, say, 1 lakh rupees, right? And you are given like a 3 lakh worth of cover. In every claim that happens, you can put like a 10% copay, for example. So in that case, if the claim settlement was to be 1 lakh rupees, then it will be 90,000 rupees for the employee. So 10% will be paid by the employee's pocket, from the employee's pocket at the time of claim, not at the time of premium, at the time of claim. Sometimes I've seen first time buyers get confused here, but copay is at the time of claim when it is mentioned in the policy, right? So at the time of claim, they will have to pay 10% of that. So the benefit of that is that it makes the employee more conscious about where they are, which room they are choosing. So I'm sure you might be aware that if you go for an expensive room and the cost of uh, surgeries or whatever it is higher than comparing to if you go for a lower room. So if they know that they have a copay, then they'll be a little more conscious.
Yeah, makes sense.
You want to be, as an employer, you want to be giving it as a benefit, not as a luxury. So sometimes this is what I've seen. If you keep your terms and conditions more and more open, like no cappings on room rent and all that. So sometimes the claim ratios go like over the roof, and then your next year premium increases. This copay options or capping options can help you, keep the policy in control from long-term perspective. So you don't want that this policy only for 1 year. You want it for, say, 10 years, right? So you want a sustainable policy. So you should definitely, as an employer, consider those factors as well when you are deciding the policy terms.
Got it. And Sanjay, since you talked about it, while it's not mentioned here, I think it's an important one to elaborate a little bit that your claims for this year define your policy cover and your policy cost for next year. You want to just quickly explain that for folks listening in?
Yeah. So claim ratios are, so if you have paid like a 10 lakhs rupees worth of premium, so if your claims are 12 lakhs for the whole year, so your loss ratio becomes 120%. So next year, the insurer doesn't go below that number. So, your premium per employee, if say it was 10,000, so you can expect it to be more than 12,000. I mean, I'm just giving you some sense around that. It will be around 13,000. So they will put some inflation factors to it as well. Then if you have, their cost of servicing also around 5 to 6% more. So a healthy policy, in my opinion, is some policy which is operating between 80 to 100%. So
Okay.
it is also very important for you as an HR or as a founder to make sure that you design the policy in such a way that your claims operate
Yes.
between 80 to 100%. And that is where the role of your consultant also comes in the play, right? So you're choosing the right consultant who is guiding you well to make sure that your policy doesn't go over the roof next year.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. The takeaway is not to stop people from taking claims. It's to designing it properly. Cool. So we've
Yeah.
covered the broad factors. Now let's move to what are the types of health insurance? I know we touched a little bit, but it'll be helpful to sort of elaborate what are the various insurance that's available.
Yeah. So you see, I mean, traditionally, basically, if you see that insurance in India is an IPD product. So by IPD, I mean it falls under secondary tertiary care. So if you get hospitalized, only that part is covered in your generally your health group health insurances that the companies are providing, right? That is one part, right? So I generally core insurance products. There is group health insurance, which is IPD, which you as an employer generally offer to the employees. Then if you have more budget and you can carve out more budget, right? So you can give a group accidental cover as well, right? Okay, so I found a mistake here in the document. I just want to call it out. So that the group accidental cover cost starts from as low as 150 to 200 rupees. It can be as low as that. It's not very expensive. So if you want, we can do this again also. It's okay. I just called it out. That's fine, right? I'll
Yeah,
get
it's
it
okay.
corrected in the day. Yeah. And then group term life is the other cover that generally the employers are offering. And that's very critical also because if your employee dies, then basically their whole family gets, then the nominee in the family gets some amount which covers them from a financial shock that might come in because of the death of the employee. So, accidental cover, just going back to the accidental cover. So, accidental cover is basically any disability that might come in, any job loss that might come in, or any deaths that might come in only due to accident. Term life is only deaths that might come up from any reason. It also includes something like suicide as well. Uh,
So accident is accident at work only, right?
no, accident at anywhere. So that's
Okay.
work. That's a different cover. That's called workman compensation.
Acha.
So that's like anything happening at work. But in accidental cover, it's a benefit. Like, for example, if you're driving, somebody's driving and then they get hit and then they get disabled, for all of that is covered. For any kind of an accident, out of work also. If they're traveling also for a vacation, is also covered. Term life is for any kind of a death. So my suggestion always is that as a next term, term life also can have an accidental rider, by the way. So you can plug in that death cover. But generally, my suggestion always is that if once you have the budget beyond ITD, so it's good to have term life insurance also, because it's a really beautiful benefit. The probability of having this is very low. But, if, for example, anyone dies in your company and you have this kind of a cover, then it comes out very
Yeah.
beautifully for your employee. So generally, I suggest to keep at least minimum 2x of the CTC, 2x. So the idea of 2x to 3x of CTC is, if somebody dies, the family gets 2 years of salary in the bank account immediately. So they get a lot of emotional shock as a family, that a very close family member has died, but they don't get the financial shock also. If you get both the shock, then the life gets disastrous. So it's very important to have a term life cover.
Yeah. And we don't think it will happen unless it happens, and God forbid it should not. But I had a
Yeah, but
case
when it
in
happens,
a
it's very
past company.
disastrous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very disastrous. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sanchit, just coming back, you mentioned primary and tertiary care. Could you explain, like, what is primary, what is tertiary?
Uh, like if I divide, the healthcare. So in healthcare, you have preventive care. Like in preventive care, you basically run around to make sure that you're healthy. You do health checkups and you go for gym and you play sport.
Okay.
That's sort of that falls under like a preventive care. Then in primary care, if I fall sick for any reason, which doesn't require hospitalization, right? Like for example, cold or something like cold or fever or viral infection that happens, that comes under primary care, right? Which is majorly OPD most of the times, and also getting a health checkup done. Then secondary tertiary care is like for any reason you get hospitalized. So, for example, somebody had some dialysis required. I mean, falls still under daycare. But if you had somebody had a surgery, right, that will um, fall under secondary tertiary care. So that is how the care is divided. That healthcare in healthcare, you know, industry. So here, a good employer, my suggestion always is to first cover them from financial risk that might
Hmm.
come up. The financial risks generally come up from either getting hospitalized because the hospital costs are very high, or somebody gets some employee dies, right? So that you're covering in core insurance, that falls under core. Then comes the primary care. So primary care is like if anyone is having any expenses around medicines in a year, so you can give some wallet around that, where the employee can actually get the doctor consultations done, diagnostics done, and also health checkups done. And in the preventive care, what generally employers do is that once you go beyond 30s, it's very advised for us to have once in a year health checkup done, right? That falls under comprehensive health checkup. A lot of companies are offering that as well. And if I don't have the budget, you still can offer this at very discounted pricing through your vendor. So you should always ask for that as an employer, right? And then I think the critical thing is that there are features now where you can have like a step tracker, where you as an HR can basically incentivize people to, be more active. So
Hmm.
modern platforms, benefits platforms are able to offer that with core insurance, where you can actually basically track how active my employees are, right? And then somebody who is very active, you can give them like an Amazon voucher, or maybe I saw a company giving
Yeah.
like higher appraisals increments to the employees who are active. So it's a good thing. I no doubt about that, right? And then of course, gym membership discounts. So in preventive care, I see that comprehensive health checkup is something which companies are spending money on. It's not very expensive also. But other things, even if they don't have the budget, my advice to you as an employer will be to, have the service provider who can give you very discounted rates than retail rates, so that employees can at least buy at a very, low cost by themselves.
Okay, so we've covered types now. I think one important thing is let's also cover context of costs, because not everyone is sure of how much costly these procedures are. I'll move to this one. Like this is broadly like what is the coverage limits or the costs of the procedures, right? It'll be helpful for people to understand this.
Yeah. So I think this is one of the most critical thing, right? So for you to understand as an employer, because it will help you in deciding the terms and conditions for your policy. Thanks for zooming in. So some of the critical terms that it's not all, but it's few, right? One is room rent, which is these are one of the core terms that you will always see in the policy. So you should always discuss this with your vendor before you are deciding basically what kind of policy terms you want, right? So room rent is critical. So you should so in metro cities, you see that a single AC room. So in a hospital like, say for example, in Bangalore, so in a hospital like Manipal or what are the other good ones, the expensive ones, Cloud9s, for example, in maternity
Apollo,
hospital,
all
right?
of that.
Apollo Hospital. So these kind of hospitals, there the single room is now upwards of 10,000 rupees, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But twin AC rooms, like it's still an AC room, but there is a
Double
curtain
sharing.
between
Yeah.
double sharing room. Yeah, so it is also great. I mean, it's not bad. It can cost around 7 to 8,000 rupees, right? So average around, like average general room is around 3,000 rupees. But in non-metros, if you, this is very critical to understand that if you are, majority of their employees are in metros, so you should know. And in non-metros, the
Mm.
costs are lower. This is what we
Yeah.
have mentioned. Now, what to understand here is that if you're choosing a room rent capping, right? Say if you're offering a 5 lakhs worth of cover, right? It's not bad, but it's decent enough to have a 2% of capping, right? On the normal room rent capping, right? So, which is up to 10,000 rupees. In many of the hospitals that, they will be able to have single AC room also, but they will be able to have twin AC room in most of the hospitals, right? If you're in Bangalore. Uh, again, uh, going back to, say, maternity costs.
Sanchit, sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
before I
One,
go, yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, your question.
I was asking like again. I'm hearing the word capping for the first time. I'm asking why do I need a capping? I can just keep it open, right?
Yeah. So you can keep if you have a lot of budget. That's what I mean. You don't care about this budget. I mean, as an employer. So some employers keep no capping also, who have like, say, a lot of funds and they're like very profitable, or they have a lot of funding and they're not worried about, and they have like very premium set of employees who generally like to go in single AC roles and blah, blah, blah. But my suggestion always is that to keep some level of capping, because employee can unknowingly go to like a presidential suite. Employees many of the times are not very much aware about how the room rent, the type of room they go into can impact the claim amount, right? So for the same surgery, if you are in a single AC room, which is on the lower side, or in a presidential suite, the cost of the claim or the cost of the bill will be
Pretty much
very
higher.
different. It will
Yeah.
be much higher, right? So I mean, if you want to do that, you can do that, but be cautious, be aware that your policy can bleed, especially if
Yeah.
you're a smaller group. So I think sometimes
Yeah.
what employers do is that you can also put a limit like single AC room. You can explicitly mention like a room rent, single AC room.
Acha.
It won't allow presidential suite. It will the insurer, but single AC room it's a little ambiguous, but sometimes 2% is decent enough. You're giving a 5 lakh worth of cover is what I suggest. 3 lakh worth of cover you're giving, then I think if you have budget, you can put single AC room, or 2% is like 6,000 rupees. So then employee has to go in to an AC room only.
Got it. And so what happens if I exceed it, right? Then I have to pay
Yeah.
this out of my pocket, right? The differential.
Yeah. So based on the, so if you have a capping, say 10,000 rupees of capping on the room, and say there is a lazy employee like me who ends up going in a presidential suite by mistake, so the cost will be covered by the insurer based on, uh, say the room rent capping of 10,000 rupees,
Capping.
whatever yeah, and then the rest
Understood.
of the money I'll have to pay by myself.
Understood. Sorry, you were saying something before maternity.
Yeah, I think the similar. I was just elaborating on that.
Okay.
So
Okay. Got it.
thanks for asking.
Okay, we can move to maternity. That's the major one. That's the major one people come and ask, especially in our function. 90% of our queries are maternity.
Yeah. So maternity. So if you see the types of hospitalization that happen, Ranak, maternity is one hospitalization, which is a very happy
It's happy
hospitalization.
one,
So
yeah.
and if you have the workforce between say 20 to 40, right? So you will see maternity people going on maternity for sure,
Yes.
right? So yeah. So I mean, if you can afford, it's not a lot of loading. So and it's a beautiful benefit that you can offer to your employees. So you should definitely consider that as a first benefit that you can offer to your employees, because generally if you go in like the expensive ones, right, the hospitals, generally you rent you end up paying like a 1.5 to 1 lakh rupees for C-section especially, right? 1 lakh is an average, but sometimes you're very excited, you end up paying more. But I think these are the costs which we have mentioned on an average for maternity for both normal and C-section. So on an average, but I mean, there's no end to it, right? Uh, but I think a good cover, minimum cover is for C-section, which I personally recommend is 75,000 rupees. And a good cover beyond that, if you want to go, is 1 lakh rupees is what you can offer as an employer.
But so, Sachin, a question on maternity. So let's say I am somebody, I'm only covering employees, right? And I am a female employee. If I don't take the maternity, then it won't be covered, right? So I have to take the maternity for me to be covered by it. I'm not talking the opposite spouse. I'm saying as self.
Yeah. So if you have maternity, if you have employees, right, and then you have female employees. So if you want if you want to give them a coverage, so you'll have to, you know, definitely add this as a clause in
Take
your policy.
maternity. Understood. Okay. Okay. And the other one again, that comes in if you've taken parental, that okay, the average claims goes up. That's always on the expensive side. Yeah.
Yes. So parental claims, I mean, if you can definitely having an intent, definitely you should give a parental cover. And the idea of giving parental cover is because many of the parents are not covered in today's India. So it's a very good, coverage, or basically a gesture as an employer to provide parental cover.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
One
This
point
was
I like, but
helpful.
you can add copay. I think we can cover that later. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is the part which again before you, Sanchit, I think I would like to address again. I'm assuming HRs are listening in. I think this part is the most helpful for us, and how I think you guys should do this is whenever you're taking an insurance, it's always helpful to do benchmarking, right? So whenever we do salary hikes, performance appraisals, we do benchmarking, right? We look at Aon and all these people, whatever they have, and we go basis that. When I was doing it, I was looking for this, was not there. So this is what I love this. So I think a great way to use this is when you're doing it, if you're a founder or you're an HR, you're sitting with the CEO, go with these benchmarks, right? Make that as a baseline, and then go and put where what you can afford. Right? This will be a useful way to go about it. But yeah, Sanchit, you can explain all of them. I think we've covered what you've covered all some insured, then family, OPay, maternity. We can go one by one.
Yeah, I think I should create a very detailed benchmark report also. That's what I'm learning from you, right? But this is like a good summary that definitely will
No, this
help
is
you as an
helpful.
yeah,
Yeah, helpful. I
yeah,
mean, for startups, yeah.
it has, it's good to get started with. But just to give you a sense that we have given some sense about uh, basically the top companies, what are they offering, right? So top 25% of companies are offering upwards of 5 lakhs. So you should know where you're standing, right? If you're providing what set of cover. So
By the way, Sanjit, one question. 3 lakhs would be in which percentile? Because a lot of companies give 3.
I think 50%, 60%,
Makes
majority of the
sense.
companies fall.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
So,
Yeah.
but you'll not be in top 25%. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight to you, Ranak, is that uh, 90% of the claims are always below 3 lakhs, 90 to 95%, as on last year, right? This year there is inflation, but still we are not seeing that the claims are going, a lot of them going beyond 3 lakhs. So if you're
Okay.
giving 3 lakhs worth of cover, my suggestion will be to add corporate buffer. You can go with 3 lakh buffer, but add there's something called corporate buffer, which is, can be used in any critical illness scenario. It doesn't cost a lot. For a 5 lakh worth of corporate buffer, it will cost you around 50, $60 as an employer for the ones who don't have budget. But if you can afford, then I think 5 lakh puts you in a very good category of employers. It's very good from optics perspective as well, because I think top 25% of the companies are offering 5 lakhs.
Got it. So, Sanjit, before we move on to family, can you elaborate on corporate buffer? What you can use corporate buffer for?
So there are two types of corporate buffer, but generally the corporate buffers are given where a corporate buffer can be used by the HR for their employee in case of some of those critical illnesses, like for example, cancer or things like that, are covered in corporate buffer. So the corporate buffer, how it functions is if you're giving like a 3 lakh worth of cover, right? Then the corporate buffer makes it 3 plus 3. It's like a recharge
Got it.
up
Got
to
it.
6 lakhs. So technically, your company has a employee has a 6 lakh worth of cover in case of critical illness, right? So, but it is only triggered at the discretion of HR. That is one thing. Second thing is HR can decide how much corporate buffer they want to utilize. So if I have a 5 lakh worth of corporate buffer, I can take a call that I just want to give 1 lakh
Acha.
worth per employee. One, even whatever the amount of claim they have. So they will
Understood.
send an email to the vendor and say that I am approving this much amount. So you can give to as many employees at your own discretion that buffer. So it's like a buffer, technically.
Understood.
So if you're cost conscious, budget is not allowing you, I will suggest 3 lakh plus corporate buffer is a good starting.
Yeah, makes sense. Moving on to family.
Yeah. So I think the majority of the good quality companies, as I mentioned, are offering, including parents, right? Or parent-in-laws, right? And the top companies go beyond. They also allow parents and parent-in-laws, right? Which is like a splurge, right? My suggestion to you as a first-time buyer or a startup who is setting it up will be to get started with at least employees, spouse, kids, and parents. It puts you in one of the best employers in the country. You should do that.
Got it. And kids, by definition, is it 2 or you have to choose that?
So majority times it's default 2, but you can extend up to 3 as well.
Got it. Okay. Moving on to room rent. Okay, we discussed 2% to 4%.
Puts
Got
in
it.
top 25% of the companies. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one important part here is ICUs, right? Keeping ICUs cap free or a higher cap for ICUs.
If I have the luxury, I will not have any capping on ICU.
Ah.
So because when you're going to ICU, you don't choose the
You
room.
don't, yeah.
You just get into any room as
Yeah.
which is available. So you can keep no capping on ICU. It doesn't impact a lot on the cost because the probability of getting into ICU is also very low.
That's it, true. Okay. Maternity, we already touched on. 75 is putting you on the top percentile. Okay, C-section is, okay, so we keep both separate, right? There is normal and C-section and the budgets for that are separate.
Exactly. So my suggestion is that you should look from both the perspectives. One is the cost. I think we had some slide about metro, non-metro cost, right? You should decide your company's terms and condition from the cost perspective also. What are the healthcare costs that are going on? Plus, what are the benchmarks that we have presented here? So I think in maternity, my suggestion always is to keep at least 75,000 be the C-section.
Makes sense.
Normal, you can keep 50th also.
Yeah. So the question was, this is over and above the room rent or it includes the room rent?
No, so Here, it's independent of your room cappings and all. So generally, hospitals have a budget. They call it like a maternity package, sort of, right? Where you have 1 lakh package, 75,000 packages based on the type of room rent that you choose. So generally, hospitals have something called maternity packages. So based on those packages, you choose the package, and it's flat. If your package is beyond say 75,000 rupees, and your company is offering you 75,000 rupees, you'll more or less you will get approved for a whole 75,000 rupees generally.
Okay. So I think we've covered on quite a bit. I think it's we can sort of summarize all of this into these four plans that you've made, like low
Yeah.
cost, pocket friendly, the four various kinds of plans. It'd be helpful to just give a summary, and then there's like the takeaway for folks. Just zoom
Yeah,
it in.
these are my recommendations. I mean, personal, like which I feel that I think it gives you a good starting point as an employer, right? So if you want to start off with, say, low cost, I always suggest to keep at least 1,000 children in your plan. Like, don't give only employees. So it doesn't cost a lot, to be honest, because not everyone has 1,000 child, right? So it's a good starting point. Cost you between 5 to 10,000 rupees. This is a range. It can go a little bit here and there. So these are not final numbers. This depends on your, the age demography of the group. Right? So the type of employees you have in the policy. So 3 to 5 lakh is a good starting point. And 50,000 to 75,000 basically is, as I mentioned to you previously, that's what I have actually written here as well. Second could be you can go a little bit more. You can give a 5 lakh plus cover, right? And you can add multiple benefits like OPD or probably like a comprehensive health checkup. It will increase your cost by say 1 to 2,000 rupees per employee, but it definitely is a very good cover to have. Other than that, you can definitely think about adding a life cover also, which probably is something which I personally recommend, which could cost you between 1 to 2,000 rupees to start with. So generally for a 10 lakh worth of cover, it costs around 1,000 rupees. For a 20 lakhs worth of cover, it will cost you 2,000 rupees. Again, these are not final numbers. It depends on how insurer is underwriting. But I'm giving a good sort of range to decide on. Then going beyond is the parental cover. So here you can start off with a 5 lakh worth of cover, or you can go a little lower also. As I said, the 3 lakh plus corporate buffer. I think we could have mentioned here as well. But keep a 2% capping if you're giving parental cover because parental claims come very frequently, or at least keep it single AC room if you want to go a little higher. Then there are some diseases which are very common in terms of old age. There also, I see that many of the times the employers end up overspending because employees not aware. So cataract, joint replacement are not like life threatening, but they are like common old age problems. So you can keep a capping on say cataract of 30 to 40,000 rupees or joint replacement up to 1.5 lakh to 2.5 lakh rupees based on the healthcare cost in your city. Why we recommend to put capping? Because many of the times you end up unnecessarily taking up a lens which can go up to 1 lakh rupees, but it's not required. So your claims increase by say 50 to 70,000 rupees, and these kind of claims are very common. So you will, when you have a parental cover in a policy, you will see that these kind of claims are very common because they are frequent in old age. Copay, personally, I think you should have a 10% copay only on parents, but of course, it depends on how the budget is coming out. But budget wise, you can say that it can cost you somewhere between 5,000 is what I have seen based on the type of terms and conditions that you have. Like a good splurge, like a very comprehensive cover. Of course, okay. So you also mentioned, I also mentioned about comprehensive cover that you should offer annual health checkup and doctor consults to your employee as well. So annual health checkup will cost you between 500 to 1,500 depending on the number of parameters that you're offering. The employee can access through the app. Then super comprehensive, again, a higher cover, right? Higher room cappings, because 7 lakhs cut 2% is 14,000 rupees, right? And again, we have given other options as optional. So this is more or less give you some sense about the different kind of plans and different kind of costs that you might incur. The idea of giving is to give you some sense of where the cost might fall. Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Any questions? I'm happy to answer. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is, I think, I'll just stop sharing this. This was super helpful. I think before we wrap up, I think let's cover the last part of it. Right? This is all about what is the plan I should take. I've taken the plan, right? Basis all of this, what fits my budget. Now, as an HR, what's the claims? What's my involvement as an HR in the whole claims process? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So you're saying that once I have bought the policy, right? So yeah, so I think the most critical thing is to ensure that once you've made the payment, there's something called policy copy, right? So I think the vendor should provide it to you within like 10-15 days of the payment, right? And during that time, you might see some claims coming in, and then the vendor should give some SOS number or an app where the employee can file for claims, or they can reach out to the claims, because during that time the health cards are not so many of the times, but it's a provisional health ID that the vendor can provide you. So during the time of onboarding, so that anyone goes to the hospital, then they can reach out and go in the cashless claims. Apart from that, on a regular basis, that what you should do as an HR is to basically make sure that there's something called CD balance. You based on your hiring plan, you keep some, like for example, generally I recommend 8%, whatever your number of employees are, you keep or the premium that you pay, 8% of that you keep in your the wallet, prepaid wallet, that is meant it's for CD balance with the insurance company. That's very critical. So because if you're adding a new employee, then you should have some prepaid wallet so that you can immediately get the employee covered. That's one piece. Second thing is that you should be cautious about, say, adding or deleting your employees from your policy on a monthly basis regularly. Because if you don't delete, you know that if you delete the employee, so for example, if I am your employee and I joined, so policy has a term, like it's like from 1st April to 31st March, right? So if I as an employee leave the company in say May 31st, so I am in the policy only for 2 months.
Yeah.
So if you delete me on time, then you get the money back in your wallet for 10 months for me, right? So it's very critical, to make sure that you are actually adding or deleting employees regularly from your benefits plan. That's one piece that you should be cautious about. Second thing you should be cautious about as an employer is, and you can also do HRMS level integrations also with the modern platforms which are there, where if you should ask your vendor to provide that. So if you're using something like Keka, Great HR, Darrenbox, Zimeo, Zing HR, I'm talking about all of them that's coming to my mind. I hope I didn't miss any one of them, but they can get integrated and then with your benefits platform, and then automatically the deletions can happen. That saves a lot of money to you because everything and time as well. That's very critical. Also, second thing you should very keep in mind is that you should observe your claim ratio on a monthly basis, right? So that you can work around with your CEO, especially after a half year is done, that what is my projected premium for next year. I've seen most of the times in smaller companies, nobody looks at it. Suddenly it shows up. Then they say, "Arey, last year I had paid 10,000 rupees per employee. This year, why is it coming out to be 15,000 rupees?" Then it comes out as a shocker to the CEO, because CEO and guys are also busy with their running their company. And then it comes out as a shocker. Then it becomes like a nightmare at the time of renewal for them. So the better thing is to keep them aware, because as a CEO, you have to budget it out for the financial year, right? What's the cost? So that they mentally are prepared that this kind of things are going on. So, and you work around with your vendor so that next year, if your budget is the same per employee, then you try to cut some terms so that you can reach out to that. That's very critical. That's missed out many of the times is what I've seen. Then on the claim side, I think your vendor should take up the ownership. You should have a monthly catch up with your vendor. Of course, depends on the size of your company. Otherwise, quarterly or half yearly is very good. And you should make sure that the vendor is employees are not reaching out to you, but they are reaching out to the vendor, right? So, like an hotline number or an escalation matrix should be shared. You should do an orientation session with the employees, right, at the beginning, and then there is a proper document and app link should go to the employee. And then, I mean, a good app will have a reimbursement filing from the app itself. So if an employee reaches out to you, they can file from the app itself. And I think these are some critical points. And the reimbursement claim ideally should get processed within 20 days. I'm telling you the higher range. If you should also observe that your vendor is adhering to that on an average, choose the right insurance company, which is digitally, I think we covered that in your previous podcast.
Yeah.
So choosing the right insurance company is also very critical. So who have right processes in place.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where like a good relationship with a good vendor comes in for us as the HRs.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're left dealing with, whenever employees are reaching out for this, they're not in the best state of mind.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have an empathetic, a good partner also on board.
Exactly. Good vendor plus the good insurance company with the vendor. So many of the times I've seen that just to cut the cost, end up choosing the insurer, uh, uh, um, uh, which doesn't have good processes in place. And then at the time of reimbursement, then you yourself suffer the most. So just to save like a 2% cost or a 5%. So I've seen that whosoever gives me L1, I'll go with that. That's one section of employers. Then one section of employers are, I'm okay to pay near to L1 cost, but I want like a buttery claim experience. So I have a very large account. They were with,
Yeah, of course.
I mean, the good process for the insurer before. And then when we move them to the right process for the insurer, they have thousands of claims coming in a year. They're like very peaceful, mentally peaceful for them. So they have been sticking to that since last 3 years.
Yeah, no, it's important
Choosing
to
the right
understand.
insurer is also critical. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a tech startup, like you're used to things on tech, you have to choose a tech vendor, and you also have to choose a insurer who's able to handle those tech.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your employees as HR, you'll go mad because you never do anything offline. Suddenly, this becomes an
Exactly.
offline thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Got it. Last two questions, Sanchit. Quick FAQs. These are questions that always keeps coming up. That pre-existing diseases, is it always covered when you go with this corporate insurance?
Yes. In group insurance, make sure that they're covered. 99% of the times they are covered, but just be cautious about that. When you're so smaller group, sometimes people tend to give you not covered, but I think you should push for cover because by default, insurers will give it by default.
Got it.
And that's the benefit of having group policy over retail policy, to be honest. The major benefit.
Yeah. Major one, right? I mean, whenever we take a cell phone, you have to wait 3 years, 5 years, what have you, for it.
Yeah.
And also, last one on kids. This one keeps coming up that I have taken employee spouse kids. I've just had a baby. What happens, right? I have to immediately add so that the baby's costs are covered, or I have a buffer time for it.
Yeah. So like, I think I've been through that. So personally also, so I remember. So what
I'm asking because I'll do it now. Next
I
month.
wish you the best. Yeah. So so what you have to do is like you probably have an app where you can add your child, right? So then you can if you want to expedite that. Generally, when you're going through a maternity claim, right? So I think the delivery time to discharge is around 2-3 days. Okay. So yeah, at least sometimes they give bed rest to both the mom and the kid, right? So in that case, you have 2-3 days of time. So generally, the baby's costs come into picture when the kid is put in NICU, which is sort of you like it or not like it, but you get pushed to put your kid in NICU, and then there is a cost coming in from NICU as well. So for that, you need to get your baby enrolled. So generally, for example, let's say ABC is the mother's name. So then you can call like baby of ABC, basically as, get the health card done. It gets done immediately. So just make sure that you don't do it at the time of discharge, but you do it at the time of delivery. Like once the baby is delivered, just get it done. You can give a call to your vendor or you can get it through an app, ideally through an app, but you can give a call to the vendor and first enroll them and then baby of mother's name. Unless you don't have a name initially most of the time. So, and they give you a health card. Generally, the health card is similar to mother's number also most of the times. And then the claims get processed at the time of discharge. Okay. So you have 2-3 days to do it. So
got it. Cool. Sanchit, this was it. This is amazing. I hope, and by the way, folks listening in, this is not sponsored or anything. I just generally thought this would be very, very helpful. So if anyone is sort of taking a new plan, hope this has been helpful. You can reach out to Sanchit. I'll leave the link to the to this guide also below. Click on it and use it. I hope this has been helpful. Any closing thoughts, Sanchit?
Yeah, Ronak, I also wrote it from the bottom of my heart to actually, help the people figure out what to do, how, like, it should be useful for them. So the intent was also that. Other than that, I feel that it's very critical. We are going through a lot of inflation right now in healthcare sector. So I'm sure like all HRs have very good intent to provide these benefits. So I hope you find it useful. And if you have any feedback, I'm happy to make corrections. Please do reach out to me if you feel that you find any corrections to be made.
Got it. Cool. Thank you, Sanchit. This was amazing.
Thank you, Ronak.
Thanks.